Welcome back to Voices and Roots. I'm Itzel, and today we are diving into a fascinating world of language and identity. Joining us are Andrea and Amy. Buckle up, everyone, for a fun exploration of style, attitudes, and how language shapes who we are. So, Andy,
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us, and then Amy. Let's start with style. Itself. In your research, what do you find interesting about how languages reflects a person, background, or social group?
absolutely. I remember the chapter of style from the book Introducing Language and Society, and it talked about accents and dialects. Like, Andrea, you know a girl who is from the south, right? I mean, does she find herself using southern slang when she's with her family?
Yes, actually, my cousin, she's from the Mexico City. So, yeah, she used words like cámara or chale, and it comes naturally of her. But I think in a formal setting, we need to change it up, switch it up, because language is like a chameleon. We need to adapt depending on the situation we are.
Yeah, that's a great point. Amy, what about you? How does your language use connect to your identity?
Definitely. As a first generation America, I sometimes mix language with my parents. We might start a sentence in English and in the end in Spanish. It's a way of honoring of heritage and creating a unique way for speaking.
That's fascinating, Amy. It brings up another point from the book language and attitudes. Sometimes people judge others based on their style of speaking.
You're right. Um, have you guys ever experienced someone mocking your accent or dialect or something like that?
Me, unfortunately, my cousin in high school, like some kids, because it was like a private school, some kids made fun of her because the way she talked, like very chilanga. So I think this thing have made self-conscious about the way each person speak according to the culture, right?
Yes, I have an experience. I can relate when I first started school here. Some kids made fun of my Spanish pronunciation, and it's frustrating because my language is just valid as theirs.
Yeah, language attitudes can be really unfair. But on the other hand, there's also the concept of appropriation. Let's delve a little deeper into this.
I am agreed. Amy, can you elaborate on how someone using another language can be considered disrespectful?
Sure. Appropriating happens when someone from dominant culture borrows elements from marginalized culture in a way that intensively mocks it. Imagine someone using slang from Black American community in a casual conversation without understanding the American context or struggle behind the language.
Yeah, that's so right. Like someone learning a few basic greetings in English or in Spanish, I think that wouldn't be appropriation. But I think when we use a stereotypical accent or slang, specifically to make fun of someone's heritage, that is definitely disrespectful.
Excellent point, Andrea. Here is a real world example. Remember the controversy a few years ago when a celebrity brand used African American vernacular English to sell clothing?
Yeah, that's a big steer. And well, many people felt it was disrespectful and exploitative using AAVE for profit without acknowledging the culture significance behind the language.
Exactly. Appropriation is about power dynamics. When someone from a dominant culture borrows from marginalized one, it can feel like a mockery or a death of cultural identity.
Yes, but there can also be appropriation. Like, who can give us an example? Amy, do you have an example that you can tell us?
Yes, absolutely. I imagine someone genuinely interested in learning another language and culture. They may take classes, immerse themselves in the community, and use the language respectfully. That's appreciation.
So, how can we navigate the complex relationship between language and, identity?
We can celebrate diversity in language. There is beauty in different dialects, accents, and ways for speaking.
Yeah, we need to be mindful of appropriation. If we're unsure, it's always best to err on the side of caution and learn more about the cultural context before speaking, because that could be a bad way, like could be appropriation.
Well, let's take a short break here and we'll be right back to discuss some common examples of languages appropriation and how to avoid them. So, yeah.
Welcome back. Now, let's get specific. Andrea, you mentioned the celebrity brand controversy. Are there other common examples of language appropriation we should be aware of?
Yes. So we can take appropriation in fashion, hairstyles. For example, when it is Halloween and we dress as an Egyptian, that is appropriation. Even when we thought that it's cool, the costume looks cool, but we are making maybe a kind of fun of that culture, of the Egyptian culture, right? And there is also this controversial example about Ariana Grande, because at sometimes, like years ago, she was always like trying to speak like a black person, and her language was more like a black person when we know she's totally white. And she was also like, she tanned her skin like 2 or 3 tones under her natural, her natural color of skin. Like, I don't want to hate her, but uh, definitely now in the social media, she's a very common topic when talking about appropriation because of the things she did at that time. And now, I'm sorry, after that, like after she was trying to look black, trying to speak black, even in her song, she was trying to speak black. Then a few years later, then she changed to an Asian look, and that was also very controversial. And we are seeing her now as very very American, very white, or even British. So yeah, that could be a kind of appropriation.
Absolutely. Appropriation can also be more subtle. For example, using a foreign word or accent for comedy effect can be disrespectful if it reinforces stereotypes.
That's a great point, Amy. Well, let's talk about, I'm sorry, about the difference between appreciation, and appropriation. Okay, so how can we tell the difference?
Yes, it's not always a clear line, but here are some guiding principles. First is the respect. So, are you using the language in a respectful way that knowledge the culture it's come from? And the understanding, do you have some basic knowledge of the cultural context and history of the language element that you're using? And we have the empowerment. Are you using the language in a way that empowers the culture it belongs to, or are you exploring it?
Those are fantastic points, Amy. Here's an activity for our listeners. Think about a time you encountered a situation where a language seemed to be used in a disrespectful or appreciative way, and reflect on the context and see if you can identify the reason behind it.
Let's take a quick listener question now.
Okay, someone says, "Hi, I love learning new language, but I'm worried about accidentally appropriating something. Any tips?"
Thanks for the question. Here's some tips. Number one, learn about the culture. Before using a language element from another culture, do your research and understand its history and significance. Other point can be start small. If you are learning a new language, focus on basic greetings and polite phrases first. And be mindful of context. Consider the situation and who you are speaking to before using something you're not familiar with. Another point can be when in doubt, leave it out. If you're unsure about your appropriateness of using something, it's always best to err on the side of caution.
Yes, so it is important to remember that language is a powerful tool for communication and connection. By being mindful and respectful, we can celebrate language diversity and avoid appropriation.
Exactly. Let's embrace the beauty of different language and use them to build bridge, not walls.
Thanks again to Andrea and Amy for these insightful thoughts. Well, we all have more resources and information on language and identity on our website. Don't forget to follow us, on social media to share your thoughts.
And until next time, keep learning and keep exploring the wonderful world of language. Bye.